Hey, how's it going everyone, and welcome to today's video. Now first, I want to talk about something amazing. My video discussing my thoughts on an R-rated Darth Vader movie has gotten over 1,500 views. I honestly still can't believe it, and it really doesn't make any sense whatsoever. When I made that video, I never thought anyone would even ever see it. The fact that so many people have not only seen it, but really enjoyed it, really makes me happy. And I appreciate each and every one of you who watched it, left a comment, dropped a like, or anything. It really and truly does mean a lot. Now, in celebration of that, I have wrote just a short concept of how I would open this film if I were to actually make it. This concept, however, is just going to be me reading with some images I've tried to gather to match the story a little bit. I am no animator, so I'm sorry, but this is the best I can do. So, without further ado, let's dive into my opening scene for Vader. Rated R. Enjoy. This movie opens as all Star Wars movies do, with a text crawl. The text reads, "The Empire reigns supreme. Following the breakdown of the Republic, the first galactic empire was established, with Emperor Palpatine at its core. The once great and trusted Jedi Order has fallen, and its remaining members are on the run as they have been labeled traitors to the Empire. The Empire's militia is not what these remaining Jedi should fear, however. Following the end of the war, the Emperor introduced his second-in-command and cruelest enforcer, Darth Vader. Known for his brutality and even killing his own men when let down, he is feared among all who are unfortunate enough to know his name, and certain doom for anyone who hears his haunting breath or sees his crimson saber ignite. Vader has one mission, to hunt down the remaining Jedi and wipe them from the face of existence." The camera then pans down as a small ship flies overhead. We then follow this ship down to the planet beneath. After it lands, a man steps out wearing something very familiar. Jedi robes, as his lightsaber dangles on his side. This is a Jedi Knight. He is then suddenly attacked with hugs and warm welcomes from all the civilians around. It is very clear that this man is very popular among the civilians. We now follow this man as he goes about his everyday life with things like unpacking and eating dinner among friends. That night, he along with a few villagers sit around a campfire in front of a large and dark wooded area. As they all joke and tell stories, in the distance in the woods there's a faint but audible crunch of a twig. One man, known as Dash, sitting closest to the trees, hears this and looks out into the woods. However, there are no other sounds he can hear, and it's too dark to see, so he brushes it off as an animal running around. Going back to listening to the conversations and joking with the people around him, he is suddenly ripped away from this once again as he hears another crunch of a twig. However, this one is closer, and now it is obvious that something heavier than any animal in the woods broke that twig. Now a bit afraid, he quickly silences the conversations around him and gets their attention. He says to them, "Did you guys hear that?" He is stopped mid-sentence as if the very breath in his lungs has been quenched. He now grabs his throat and begins to gasp for air. Seeing this, another man stands and says, "Dash, what's going on? What's wrong?" And then as quickly as he finishes his sentence, he's violently yanked through the air into the dark woods as the others watch in horror. Merely a second later, they witness something horrifying. The man's screams suddenly stop as they see him chopped down by an ominous red glow in the dark woods. This red glow quickly disappears, but not before they get a closer look at its source. The red light illuminated the dark and horrifying figure behind these acts. As the light disappears, Dash falls over dead. Now absolutely terrified, the villagers begin to scream in panic before the Jedi among them shouts for them to run back to the village and that he will handle this. They all quickly run away, leaving only the Jedi by the campfire. The crunching in the woods is getting closer and closer as the Jedi removes his cloak and grabs his lightsaber, preparing for the fight ahead. However, he suddenly grows cold and is met with an overwhelming, intense feeling of anger and hatred. Then suddenly, he hears it. The iconic breathing is getting closer and closer. The Jedi then ignites his saber, and then, out of the woods, steps Darth Vader. Vader stands menacingly, staring down this Jedi for a moment before igniting his red saber. The two stare each other down, waiting for the other to make the first move. The two engage in lightsaber combat. This Jedi is very skilled, however, this is no ordinary enemy. He blocks and attacks with his saber with everything he has, but it's just no use. Despite his very best efforts, he is unable to find even the smallest crack in Vader's defense, and it isn't long until Vader begins to overpower him. Eventually, Vader literally disarms him by cutting his hands off, and the Jedi falls to the ground defenseless. Vader slowly and menacingly walks over to him and stands above him. The fallen Jedi looks up at him and says, "What kind of monster are you?" Vader does not respond to this, however, and instead quickly decapitates him with one swift motion of his saber. The Sith Lord then deignites his saber and begins to slowly walk towards the village. As Vader passes the camera, it pans down to the fallen Jedi's head as we watch Vader walk away in the reflection of his latest victim's cold and lifeless eyes. Despite his failure, the Jedi did buy the villagers enough time to alert everyone, so those who had weapons armed themselves in preparation for the oncoming assault. Nervously, they waited in the dark and quiet night, hearts beating a mile a minute and hands shaking as they clenched their rifles. And then it came. Down the hill walked Vader, slowly, as if this was all just child's play to him. The villagers immediately opened fire on him as he ignited his saber and began deflecting the blaster bolts back at them. One by one, the villagers fell, dying by their very own blaster bolts. When the smoke cleared, Vader was still there, unscathed, and yet only 2 armed villagers remained. They looked around at the horror surrounding him as this one man had single-handedly killed all their brothers in arms and stared at what they now knew would be their same fate. Before they could even begin firing again, they began choking as Vader walked ever so near with his hand up, holding their throats with the Force. As he approached the men, he asked one simple question.
Do you have knowledge of any other Jedi in the surrounding systems?
He relieved their choking only enough so they could just barely get out the word, "No!" However, Vader could sense within one of them that he was lying. Vader, using the Force, lifted both of them off the ground and tightened his grip around their throat. He responded,
You are being deceptive. Tell me what I need to know and perhaps I will leave the remainder of your village unharmed.
The one villager finally admits to Vader that he does in fact know of another Jedi nearby on a planet. Upon learning this information, Vader releases the men from their chokeholds. He, however, does not turn around and leave, but rather stands and stares down these 2 men. He then gazes off and looks over the village. The men, realizing he is deciding whether or not to continue his assault, begin to plead and beg him to leave the rest of the village unharmed. The one begins apologizing to Vader, desperately saying, I'm sorry. After a minute of this begging, Vader then turns around and begins walking back towards the woods where he came from. The men begin feeling relieved as it appears they have survived an encounter with death itself. However, this hope is quickly ripped away from them as they suddenly once again begin gasping for air and choking. Vader continues walking and doesn't even look back. As he disappears back over the hill, the 2 men collapse lifeless.
Apology accepted,
Vader remarks. We then follow Vader, who makes his way back to his ship and departs from this planet. The final shot we see in this opener is a pan-over shot showing the destructions left behind by this one man. Well, that is going to be it for the opener of Vader. Please let me know what you think about it down in the comments, as I would really love to hear your feedback. I have never written or made any kind of movie, so I have no clue if this is any good. So please make sure to let me know if you liked it or not. If there is something you would change, please feel free to let me know. I had a lot of fun making this, so I really hope you enjoyed it. Once again, thank you all so much for the support. I really appreciate it. I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day, and I'll catch you in the next one. May the Force be with you.